Welcome, everyone, to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. I'm a networking expert and the author of the upcoming book, No Strangers, How to Build Community, One Relationship at a Time. My why is the pursuit of mastery, and the goal of this podcast is to lock arms on a lifelong mission of daily personal growth to become the best version of ourselves. So let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. We are joined by a very special guest. He is a singer-songwriter and the winner of Season 5 of Canadian Idol. Among his many accomplishments, he's got a gold album. He's got a platinum single. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Brian Melo. Brian, how are you, brother? We had a few technical difficulties getting this up and running. I know you're rushing out of the studio. What's going on?
Yeah. Being tech savvy is definitely not one of my strong suits, so it was probably on my end. but yeah, man, I've been busy doing music and life's been good, man. How about you?
Everything's good with me. Just spent a little bit of time out in Saskatchewan with family, so got a reset with a different environment, kind of a change of schedule. It's always nice to be back home, sleeping in your own bed, and I'm excited just to get everything going again. So, people are familiar with you with Canadian Idol, with all the, the album you put out after that, with the live performances. Let's go back to the beginning. Now, we actually know each other from Season 5 of Canadian Idol. I had, 15 seconds of fame. You went on to win the whole damn thing, which is pretty cool. And we've stayed in touch. Where did your love of music come from? When you were growing up, where did music come into play?
Yeah, it was just music was always played around my house, and my parents. I mean, there was such a different array of music that was played around my house, from Robbins to some old like Portuguese fado music, to my brothers and sisters, being into some of the classic rock bands. So it was always around the house. But my two older brothers had a huge influence on me, and they were in like wedding bands and things like that. And they were my superheroes. They were 9 and 11 years older than me, and I'd watch them go out for gigs and perform. So I wanted to be like my brothers, and kind of got the bug really early. So I was lucky to be immersed in music at a very young age.
And is there a specific memory, when you think back now, is there a specific memory of the first time music really stood out to you? I remember, hearing music from my sister and my dad, but it never really connecting. There just was music, but it wasn't my passion. And then, a certain album came out, and it's the first time where you're just engrossed in this album, and music means something. Did you have a moment?
I definitely had a moment. Yeah, clear as day. I remember like my first music memory, as far as like, oh, wait a second, like I can actually do this. And it was, again, one of those festivals that my brothers were playing, and all the kids were running around this hall in downtown Hamilton. And I was just like, my eyes were locked on my brothers playing, and they could tell how much I was into it. And they pulled me up on stage, and my one brother was the drummer, the other one was the guitar player. And the drummer, he gave me a tambourine, and I stood beside him, and I started playing this tambourine with my brother. And there was like, I don't know, maybe 200 people at this little like Portuguese like dance festival that we were at. And obviously you're this young kid on stage, and once the song was done, I got this roar from the crowd, and they all just clapped for me to, being up there with them. And the feeling was amazing, to be up on stage with the band was like so cool. So it started with the tambourine on my hand, and I was maybe 6 years old, 7 years old at tops. And just after that, just wanting more of that feeling, and then from there, I was kind of a bit of a shy kid. So I was writing songs in my bedroom. I started writing before I was even really singing. My parents and my family didn't even know I could sing until I was like 16, 17 years old, because it was just something that I would do in my bedroom, my escape. So I would just write these little tunes with my best friend till this day. And that was my escape. But the spark was definitely hopping on stage with my brothers on that show, for sure.
You were the tambourine man, and you got
I
a
was
little taste of music glory. Um, you mentioned that you were shy as a kid. Is that still a thing now, or has music helped you get over that? Or do you still think you're an introvert and people step on stage and they kind of come to life as a new character?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a new character thing for me now. I think I definitely got rid of a lot of that anxiousness and nervousness when I was in high school, and being able to go on stage and start doing solos and stuff in high school really helped break me out of my shell. So I was lucky enough to have people that believed in me before I even believed in myself, and they would sort of push me along. And through getting more reference points and through actually just getting out there and facing your fear, that started to get a lot more comfortable for me. So now I'm at the point that, sure, if I'm still doing like a big show or a show I'm pumped about, I'll have those excited nerves, but it's not like how it was before, where I was a little bit more in my shell. That started to sort of break away late in high school.
The excited nerves are good. That just means you care, right? If you
Yeah,
have kind
it's
of
a
an
fun line,
indifference
right?
to it, if you're about to play an arena and you feel nothing, then there's
Yeah.
probably
Well,
something wrong.
someone like you, like going back to Idol, like I remember the performance that you did during the Toronto week. That was like really memorable. What was the tune you did? Like
I
Big
did
Bucks
an
25,
acoustic cover of Baby Got Back.
Baby Got Back, yeah. And you getting right into character and having fun with it. Like I couldn't do that. Like what you did to get into character and kind of like that I think I'd be really nervous for. But you did it so good. I remember that just being such a memorable moment in that season.
Thank you. My thoughts. So it's a competition, right? And it's a TV show. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it. I made it past the first few auditions, and whenever
Yeah.
you see someone on TV in Idol, they've already gone through like 3 auditions, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Generally, and I just thought to myself, okay, I'm going to Toronto now, and it's down to, I don't know, the top 200 out of like 15,000 or something ridiculous. And I'm thinking vocally, like my voice against these amazing, like Mariah Carey type singers, like I stand no chance. So
Yeah.
I thought, what can I do to actually stand out? And I thought, okay, well, vocal to vocal, I don't stand a chance. But if I have my performance plus song choice plus creativity plus like wow factor plus, like I thought if I could put like 10 qualities together, I could maybe beat out a better singer, which is what happened until
Yeah.
you get the axe at some point. But yeah, that's pretty funny. So you mentioned growing up in Hamilton. Do you think being in the Hammer influenced you as a musician?
Now that I look back and I'm older, yes, yes, definitely, and I can see it clear as day. But when I was starting out, I had a bar band that I was with for a few years, and when I was standing out, it was just there's just a lot of music in Hamilton. It's a very artistic city, a lot of talented musicians. So um, I think it definitely it influenced your attitude. Maybe not so much your music, because there's like so many different styles in this city, but it just being very blue collar, very hardworking, and just that grittiness of the town that sort of kind of bleeds into a lot of the music in Hamilton. So I think in that respect, it definitely influenced me. But like I said, until I actually got older, I don't think I realized how influential the city actually was on me.
There's a very important day coming up in Hamilton later in October. Do you know this? October 12th. It's a big day. Do you know what that
Yeah,
is?
yeah, it's a big day. Yeah, Brian
Brian
Melo.
Mello Day. Man, what is that like? Having a day named after you in the city you grew up in.
Well, I'll tell you this: it's not like people are celebrating that damn holiday here when it comes around.
They're not like flipping cars and there's fireworks going
Yeah,
off
there's
and
there's there's no riots, there's no parade, there's no floats, but but yeah, they did that day for me the year that I won. So I won Idol on September 11th, 2007. And then they did a month after, it was kind of the homecoming. So they did the Melo Day. And it was basically the whole day, me going through my high school, singing at I think the Ticats game. I sang at the Bulldogs game when they had the Hamilton Bulldogs, and then did a concert at night. So they sort of made a whole thing of it. But it was just a one-stop shop. And I know a lot of people think that it's like his annual thing. But yeah, it was just '07 when the hype was really there.
Hey, maybe I'll road trip down. So I moved from, I've been in Mississauga for 11 years. I just sold my house and moved to Ottawa, where I'm from. Maybe I'll road trip back to Hamilton on October 12th and start some parties and some chaos.
Hey, why not? Right? Let's bring it back.
I'll show up at your door. So you mentioned that you played in a bar band. Did you play in multiple? Like most people, they go through lots of different bands while they discover themselves as a musician, while they meet more people, while they kind of forge their own style and different genres. Did you play in a bunch of bands? And what's the most ridiculous band name that you can remember that you were in? I was in some pretty horrible ones.
I know there are some pretty horrible ones. Even the name that we settled with isn't great. So you know how it is when you're coming up with band names. It's one of like the hardest things to do. But no, I didn't have another band. It was just my one band, which was called Stoked. And
that's a good name.
Yeah,
I mean, you think of like the Rainbow Butt Monkeys or like Butthole Surfers or like Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like those names become cool once you become big, and it doesn't matter. But there's some ridiculous names.
We had some terrible names leading up to that. So like the first 3 or 4 gigs that we did, we had a different band name for every gig. So we had Gotcha. So that was terrible. That didn't stick. Then we were playing that, I think it was on PlayStation or something. We were playing that snowboarding game. And there was
what is it? Cool Borders?
Cool Borders or something like that. We were playing that. And there was a move called Shove It to the Nuke. So we did one of the other gigs. We were Shove It to the Nuke, and then I think we were something else. So by the time that one of the bandmates came in and said, "Hey, how about Stoked?" We were so over, like, it doesn't suck. Let's just go with that, right? But yeah, we had a couple bad ones before that. But yeah, the guys that I played with, I mean, I'm still great friends with till this day, and we were high school buddies, and they had a band called Wasted Nights. KN, Wasted Nights.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And our friend, our mutual friend, he was the lead singer of that band at the time. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and they called me in, and that's when we became Stoked. And then we were together for about 5 years, just kind of going around Southern Ontario, doing gigs, doing shows, things like that. And that kind of bled into the Idol auditions. So that was the band, and then I went off and did my own thing after that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you were working construction while playing in the band leading up to Canadian Idol. So what was life like doing construction? Now I have my good days and my bad days, and I usually go out for a few hours a day for walks. And man, there's times in the winter where I'm walking and it's freezing, and I see guys doing construction all day long, and I think, man, like, there's a million ways to make money, and those guys are hustling out there, and that's tough. What's it like actually doing construction full time?
Man, I mean, I don't miss it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't miss it. I mean, it gives a great living to a lot of people. And there's, I got my brother who's still in construction, and my father, who was a machine operator for 25 plus almost 30 years, and put a roof over their heads. So I respect the profession, but it just wasn't for me. And you those early mornings, and like you said, especially those Canadian winters, as we head to like the end of the season, just freezing my ass off. Like I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all. And yeah, I mean, I did it for about 4 years. And I remember a moment though. I remember a moment where I was like sort of an epiphany of like, okay, if I stay here, like this, like I'm gonna lose how do I put it? Like if I stay here, I kind of could foresee my future. And I was at McMaster University, and they wanted me to dig a hole for these electric. They had these electric locates. They're trying to find the electric wire, but they thought it was too close to the ground to use the machine. So they gave me a shovel and said, that's basically my job. Start digging a hole. And I went looking for this thing and I couldn't find it. I literally dug a hole for 10 hours to the
Did you
point
picture
where,
yourself like digging your own grave or something?
okay, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, all right. Sorry, spoiler. I just ruined.
No,
Yeah.
but that's basically what it was. Like by the end of the day, I was in a hole up to my shoulders, trying to get this dirt over. It's falling. It's just, I'm miserable. It's cold. And I remember saying to myself, like, if I stay here, I'm literally digging my own grave. I'm literally digging my own grave. So I promised myself, and that was actually, no, that wasn't in the winter. That was in the summer. And I promised myself that I wouldn't come back for another season of construction, and trying to figure out, what I was going to do. And then sure enough, the whole idol thing happened. And but there was definitely a mental shift leading up to that definitely changed everything for me. But I was able to get that opportunity, and the rest is history, as they say. But yeah, I definitely had some moments of like, okay, like I know that where this is leading. So I had to make, some of those tough calls, because you're getting paid well, and it's security. But for me, I've, my passion and my love, for the things I love most are what lead me. So I had to make that tough call, and I'm glad I did.
Speaking of that, where you say, you're making pretty good money, it's hard to leave that. You mentioned my Goggins poster here. And
Yeah.
so just to read it, you're in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential. Stay hard. And that's kind of what they're talking about. It's when you do start making, enough money to pay the bills and it starts to get a little comfortable. They say that's kind of the death of ambition. When someone's really struggling, it's like, well, I know I need to get out of here, but it's when it's like the golden handcuffs or whatever they call it,
Yeah, it shows you how hungry you are. I have a really interesting story about Goggins. So I was living in Nashville for almost 5 years. I moved back home about 2 years ago now, and I was living in this area that was called Antioch, Tennessee, and it was really close to this other town called Brentwood. And I had this routine: when I woke up in the morning, I would drive to my favorite coffee shop. I'd go and grab my coffee, get a little bit of work done, start my day. And every time that I would go to this coffee shop, I would see this ripped dude, no shirt on, with shorts, jogging in the morning every day. I'm like, who is this? This guy is a beast. Like, he would inspire the hell out of me, because every day I'd go for the coffee. Every day I would see this guy running, right? Just looking like a beast. I'm like, this guy's a warrior. Several months, that went for maybe a month or two that I would see this guy every day, and then he was just gone. And several months later, I'm watching the Rogan podcast, and this guy, David Goggins, hops on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's the guy that I was driving past for 2 months, was David Goggins. I was like, oh, was he here? And sure enough, I looked it up. His mom lived in Brentwood, and he was there with his mother for a few months and then left. So I saw Goggins doing his thing every day before, the world knew who Goggins was. And I can attest firsthand, this guy definitely practices what he preaches, because every single day that guy was out sweating and just, being the warrior that he is. So it's pretty crazy to see how far that guy's actually gone since, a few years ago.
Yeah, he literally walks the walk, which is awesome. His book Can't Hurt Me is amazing. I don't know if you've had a chance to pick that up. Yeah. That's actually one of the books that are great as an audiobook, because he's the one that's narrating it, and he right off the bat says, okay, this isn't going to be a normal audiobook. He adds in a bunch of stuff, and there's someone interviewing him like while he's reading the book, and you just get more than the book itself, and you can feel like the pain in his voice, you can feel the passion, all the different parts. So that's a great one for anyone looking for an audiobook that's inspiring.
Yeah, I read the book. I've heard a lot about the audiobook. I have to check that out though.
So in Canada, when you think of the biggest artists of all time, Shania Twain is one of the biggest,
Yeah.
one of the best selling. And you actually have a little bit of history with Shania Twain. So you were in a choir back in the day, and you were able to sing with her. What are your memories of that time? How old were you? What was that experience like?
I was 16 going on 17. And I remember having a huge crush on her. It's like
I
everybody
still
did.
do.
I know, I still do. Who am I kidding? But I was in a vocal class that year, and for me, I'll be honest. At that point, I didn't. You know how guys are. Like, I didn't want to be in a choir in high school because I didn't. I was like, oh, this isn't cool. My friends are gonna make fun of me. I'm like, I was that kid. And but sure enough, they made the vocal class the choir, so I didn't really have a choice in the matter. So, but that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I met one of my greatest music mentors, which was a woman by the name of Linda Gatto, and she was my vocal coach and teacher. And she, like I said, she was one of those people that believed in me before I believed in myself. And she would give me solos for the first time and things like that. And she really helped me break me out of my shell. But later on in that semester, uh, there was a couple schools that were in line to perform with Shania, and they picked Cathedral High School in Hamilton, and they needed 8 students to sing "God Bless the Child" with Shania Twain at Cops Coliseum in Hamilton,
This is like
and
on her tour or something.
on her tour. So I think every city she had like a choir coming in to sing the song with her. So on her tour, we were picked for Hamilton, and sure enough, we were able to go on stage and perform with her. But I remember that we were practicing harmonies for like 2 months leading up to the show. And then when we got there and we worked with the MD and the band, apparently we were practicing the wrong harmonies the whole time.
Oh,
So
wow.
the day of the concert, we all had to learn different harmonies that actual day. And I
Please tell me
remember,
it worked out. Please tell me it all went well.
yeah, it worked out because she had such a smoking band that they were covering a lot of ground, and we did enough to sort of like make it sound great, but they definitely helped us along the way for sure. Not to make us sound terrible, but I remember the feeling clear as day. And this is there's certain pivot moments that you have in life, and this was definitely one of them for me, where walking on stage when they say, okay, they're ready for you, and you're walking through the hallway getting ready to hop on stage, and there's like 18,000 people there. My heart, I could literally see pumping out of my chest. I was that nervous. I was just terrified. And hopped on stage, and we got to perform, and I remember just hearing the roar of the crowd and just that feeling, and remember kind of pretending that every cheer was for me at that moment. I kind of manifested the moment of like that cheer was for me, right? And I remember walking off that stage, and it was like it was my mission after that to feel that feeling again, because it was the greatest high you could ever feel. So that was huge for me to be able to experience that. I was like, I have to do that again. I have to figure out a way to do that again. Now, a funny story is the same day she would do these contests where they would have like everyone would do a solo song, and whoever won the solo song got to sing a duet with Shania on stage. So the girl that won that day that was on stage, her name was Victoria Bolin, and she ended up singing a little solo with Shania that day, and then I did the choir. Fast forward 11 years later, I end up joining a band called Apollo's Crown, the band I was with in Nashville, and Victoria Bolin was my bandmate. So
Wow.
here we are talking, and I think she brought up that she sang with Shania Twain, and I brought up that I sang with her too, and we realized that we were both on stage the exact same night. And then sure enough, a decade later, we're in the band together. Like, just I don't know what that means, but there
That's
is some
pretty
stars
cool.
aligning there. Yeah.
That's awesome. So there's the Shania Twain event. There's the stuff with your band. There's a construction, and along comes Canadian Idol.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to audition for it? And I know you auditioned, on different years. What
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
you originally go and audition for the show? Just the opportunity, the promotion you get, and the awareness, the experience, the chance
Yeah.
at fame and fortune. What was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was always a push from family and friends. So it was never something on my mind of like, I'm gonna go. But I had some family and friends that thought that I should go and give it a shot. So there's always a nudge from people for me to go and do it. And I thought, what the heck, let's give it a shot. It's a good opportunity. So that was basically the reason. But um I know on the third year when I went, the main thing for me was, can I do this at a professional level? You know, that was, I was like, am I kidding myself? Or my family and friends just biased? And, can I actually do this? Or, am I not that talented? Like, I just didn't know, so that was a big validation for me as I went on to the show, because I just wanted to know if I was kidding myself or if I actually had some talent. And for me, I didn't know at that point. I just knew I was a pretty good singer and I love to be on stage and perform. But really, I was in my own little world in Hamilton and a couple little cities. So I didn't really get out there too much. It's not like I had the experience of touring around Canada and being in front of a lot of people that never heard me before. It was usually friends and family that were coming to the gigs, so you always kind of got the validation from them, but I didn't know how much of it was real or how much of it was just like family support. So that those were definitely some of the motivators.
So you auditioned, I'm guessing season 3, season 4, didn't have a ton of success. And then season 5, you go on to win everything. So what do you think is the difference between year 1, year 2, year 3? And is it that season 5 is the first time where they introduce instruments, which is where they caught my attention?
Yeah. I did season 2, season 3, didn't do it on season 4, and then season 5. So um for me, I think the difference was in between. Like the first 2 auditions, I got some. I'll straight up. I'll be the first to say I wasn't ready. I knew I had raw talent, but I didn't have control. I needed to learn how to sing better, to control my voice. And after the second time I tried out, I went and I got vocal lessons, and I started driving from Hamilton to York to get these lessons, and that helped a ton as far as learning how to use my instrument. But more than anything, it was my mindset. And around that time, I had a friend that uh, gave me a CD by Brian Tracy, and it
He's
was called
amazing.
yeah. And that was sort of my first introduction into like personal growth and personal development. And he gave me a CD called 22 Steps to Becoming a Millionaire. And I remember he gave me the CD, and I kind of just tossed it in my car and I forgot about it for months. And then after winter, it was like spring cleaning time, and I was cleaning out my car and I found this CD, and I put the CD on, and here I am expecting like the secret sauce of only what the rich people know and the wealthy. And so my motivation at that time was, how do I get rich? How to become a millionaire? I'm 23 maybe at this point. Um, and I learned that all the steps all had to do with principles and character. That's it, is who you became, about taking responsibility, about having a strong mindset, about being polite, about taking chances, all these different steps. And one thing he had was writing your goals out every day. So I wrote my goals out every single day for probably 8 to 9 months. This is leading up to Idol. And I remember some of the goals that I put out. Like he said, write it in present tense, right? So I would write, I have a record deal. I have a song on radio. I have a gold album. I have blah 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 blah. I had all these different things that happened, and I wrote that every single day, and then I would repeat it out loud. But at that point, I started working out. I I I, I dove into personal development. I started writing out my goals every single day, and leading up to Idol, all of a sudden you look like a year later, I started doing that. I almost crossed off half my list. And that's the thing, that's what was insane, because I wasn't thinking about Idol. I wasn't thinking that was even a possibility of that's how I'm going to get there. I just wanted to put that intention out there. And then sure enough, several months later, I got the record deal. I got the song on radio. I people knew my name as a musician around the country now. Like all these things that I had wrote down, I was able to cross off about half that list, and that blew my mind. So after that experience, it proved to me that nothing was impossible. and that's when everything really started to change for me. But that was definitely the biggest change. So going back to your question about the third audition, I had that mindset going in. So I was prepared, because at that point I probably did 150 shows in like almost a year and a half time leading to that last audition. So my experience was better, but also just being present and being ready. So it did help that there was instruments on the show that year, but I never picked up an instrument the whole time I was on the show, and I play guitar, but when I was on the show, the only time I did it was when I was on the week with you guys. And I think it was the first time, and I did Imagine on guitar. That was the only time I brought out the guitar. Every other time it was, I didn't even utilize that advantage, so that didn't really change that definitely motivated me to go, but it didn't change how I approached Idol, because I was still just getting up with a microphone and trying to prove it with my voice.
Yeah, personal growth is so important. It's you don't get what you want, you get who you are. I've heard that before, which is pretty cool.
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
The whole be, do, have, right? People think once I have this, I'll be happy. And it's like, you have to be happy. And that's how you achieve that or get that. What's funny is I started by playing guitar, and then along the way, I eventually started singing. So before Idol, I always thought of myself as a guitarist that sings. And I actually played guitar during all the auditions. And then what's funny is after Baby Got Back, then I think in the top 200, then they said, okay, no more instruments. I was like, what? Oh no, I didn't see that coming. I thought it was, so I had to put down my crutch and move forward. So
yeah, well, I picked up the guitar pretty late. So I picked up the guitar when I was 18, 19 years old, but I would always write these tunes. But when I was with the band Stoked, I was a frontman without a guitar. So I got used to being a frontman before playing behind a guitar. So I know a lot of guys that, they use the guitar as a crutch. So once the guitar went away, they didn't really know what to sort of do with their hands or how to walk around stage, because they're always sitting behind that guitar. So it was an advantage to me to actually do the opposite, where I was the front man first and then I grabbed the guitar. So that definitely helped.
So you had a cool David Goggins story, and I have a cool Brian Tracy story. So
really?
So I had read his book Eat That Frog, and then I was listening to, it was about a 30-hour audio on negotiation. Apparently he's like one of the best negotiators in the world. So I knew the name, but I couldn't put a face to him. I wasn't that familiar with him. And suddenly I go to my first personal growth event ever. So this is November 2014. It's funny how you remember those things, right? And I go to a personal growth event. It's a 3-day event. I'm only there because a cute girl asked me to go. Like, I wasn't there for personal growth. And at that event, I met a guy. And as I finish the 30-hour audio on Brian Tracy, where I'm like, wow, this guy's amazing, that new guy that I just met at the personal growth event goes, hey, Joel, do you know Brian Tracy? And I go, it's so weird. Like, I just finished his audio. He goes, oh, he's going to be here next month. So that was November. This is in December. He's going to be here next month. I can get you free tickets to the event and you can meet him if you want.
That's amazing.
So the very next month in December, 2014, I went to, I think, a 2-day event with Brian Tracy, and I have a picture with Brian Tracy. I'm like awesome. Hugging him. It's like awkward. And so it's kind of funny how that stuff manifests as well, and how you start something new and you have no idea where it's leading. And exactly. It's the famous Steve Jobs quote, where you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So you don't know why you did these things, but when you look back, you see kind of this journey that you traveled.
Yeah, isn't it a beautiful thing, man? Like, just, yeah. I mean, that's happened to me so many times that, like I said, like after you've done that several times, the risk is worth it. You don't really kind of stand on the edge nearly as long as you used to when you first started going, because you sort of trust in the process, and and you understand the power of kind of failing your way to success as well. So it's like, why not go for that goal or whatever it is that you're going for, because at the very least you're learning something, but it's having those reference points that are so important. And like you said, once you start pulling the thread, it might take you to an even more beautiful place that you weren't even expecting.
When you think back to all the auditions on
Yeah.
Canadian Idol leading up, so there's the top 22 moving forward, where it's more of the polished show. When you think back to the auditions leading up to making the top 22, what do you remember? So I remember being in Toronto at the nice hotel, and I remember it being like a boot camp where you didn't get enough sleep. You went to bed late because you had to practice. You had to get up early because things were getting started. They wouldn't let you know your song options until there's not much time left, so you're struggling. People are losing their voices. People are sleeping like on the concrete because it's not time to go back to the room yet. People are quitting, and I realized very quickly that this is like a boot camp where they're trying to weed out all the soft people, and they know by the time that they get down to the final 22, like, these are warriors that are going to see this through to the end. They're not going to get a top 22 where 5 of those people end up quitting along the way before even getting cut. So that's what I felt. It felt like a boot camp. I don't know what your experience was.
I felt the exact same, and it was amazing to see all these people drop out, and a lot of them couldn't cut it, or a lot of them thought it was something else and they weren't into it. And I remember, like I said, just my mindset was a bit different that time. I wasn't there to make friends. I was very, very focused. So I kind of kept to myself for most of that week. And not that I wasn't talking to people or got to know people, but I didn't go out of my way. I was very sort of focused on the task at hand and just reminding myself why I was there, and I remember, like you said, seeing people sing, and they would sing all day. Like people don't know, these are 12, 13, 14-hour days. And some of these people would sing for like 5, 6, 7 hours, just nonstop. And I remember thinking, like, how's your voice going to hold up? And sure enough,
and they wouldn't.
And by the time it got closer to the end, they had no voice at all. Right. So I just remember being really focused. And like you said, that was the hardest week of the whole competition, even when I got into live shows. Because like you said, it's like we'd wake up at 6 or 7 in the morning, we'd get to the theater, we'd go till midnight or 12:30. They'd give us the songs, and you would have to, at that point, it's probably like a duet or a group song or whatever on like the second or third round. You get to know these people you don't even know. You go back to the hotel. You have to learn these songs, try to remember the lyrics on lack of sleep, go to bed at probably 4 o'clock in the morning, wake up around 6:30, and get ready to head back to the theater. And we did that all week. So yeah, you're exhausted. You're absolutely exhausted. And you're right, it was a boot camp. And I get why they did it too, because I mean, they don't want people being gun shy once the lights are on you, and that was definitely an adjustment, once the cameras are on you and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot that week, but man, what a memorable week.
Yeah, man. So you make it to the top 22, which is amazing. You now know that you're officially part of season 5 of Canadian Idol. You know you're going to be on the main broadcast. There's 2 million people that watch every episode. It's massive. It's a ton of promotion. It's a great opportunity. The voting is starting, all that stuff. So at the very start, you were considered the dark horse, and throughout the competition, you're in the bottom three different times. It's not easy to survive once, as the dark horse, and you go on to win the whole thing. Was there a moment where you started to believe, holy shit, I can actually win this whole thing? And maybe that was the mindset from the very start. You're like, I got this, man. Or was there a moment where you thought, okay, I could do this?
Yeah, there's definitely a moment. The beginning of the competition, it really, I was a bar guy, so I was used to being in pubs and bars performing, and really letting loose. And there was definitely a learning curve there for me with the lights and the cameras and where to go, and, trying to be natural,
I remember like X's on the
yeah,
stage.
yeah. And they'd say stuff like, like, your eyes are the windows to your soul, so look into the camera, and like shit like that. And that felt so unnatural to me. And I think the first couple, I looked into the camera, and they would say, like, finish it off with you staring at the camera. It's good for the votes or whatever. And I was like, this feels so weird. And once I just stopped doing that and just reminding myself how I used to perform with my band, everything got better. But I think it was pretty far along where I was like, okay, wait a second. I think I can do this. And it was top 5. And on top 5, I did Karma Police by Radiohead. Kelly Clarkson was the mentor for that week. And that's when I started to get a lot more press, and things were really starting to ramp up. And I think I sort of pushed along midway through that top 10 into one of the front runners. But I went from top 14, I was on the bottom, top 9, and top 7. And after top 7, I went after, like, you remember Greg Neufeld?
Yeah, he's awesome.
So Greg and I were on the bottom, top 7. And he was awesome. I mean, he could have went super far. I thought he was one of my favorite singers on that year. And I remember, like, he was like my best friend on the show.
And one of you guys has to go?
And one of us have to go. So
Oh,
it sucks, right?
show business, huh?
Yeah, it was cutthroat. And then he went, and then that sort of, I promised myself, okay, that's never going to happen again, and my focus got that much more zeroed in. And what I would do is, again, it went with the whole personal growth thing. I really visualized each performance. So I was the only one that was doing this. And I would have my headphones. I'd have my song for the week. It was my CD player at that time. and I would walk the stage at John Bassett Theater. I'd walk the stage with the song, and I would visualize everybody's expression. I would visualize where I would be at that point in the stage. I'd visualize and feel what the judges would say to me, the roar. And I would do this for like an hour and a bit, and I would just run through the motions by myself. And I'd meditate on it, sitting in the middle of that stage right after. And then I'd release it. I do that all week leading up to the actual performance. So when I got to performance day, it felt as if I already did it. Like, obviously my nerves were still there, and getting on stage, like, it was definitely the real thing, is something different, but it felt as if I already went through these motions, and I truly believe that helped me a ton, just kind of building that little habit before every performance.
The Karma Police performance, I'd say that was probably widely considered as your best performance leading up to that point anyways, right? I remember that really standing out, where
For a lot
the
of
feedback
people,
was very good.
Yeah, it was really good. And like I said, that was sort of the performance that catapulted me out to the front of the show. There was a
good
couple
old Radiohead for the win, huh?
Yeah, and I'll tell you this is another thing. So I would have the producers come up to me. It happened a couple times, and people listening, this is just proof of following your gut. So the 2 times that the producers suggested for me not to do songs were my 2 highest voting episodes. So in top 8 was an acoustic week, and I did She Talks to Angels by Black Crowes. And the producers were saying, listen, they did always say the same thing. Like, listen, man, like, I love this song, but it's not the voting public. Like, I'm telling you, I'm like, I think I can do this song good. Okay. Like, they'd let me do it, but they definitely weren't shy of letting me know where they stood. And I did it. And then Karma Police came out, and no one was really doing any like alternative stuff like that. And the producer said the same thing to me. And sure enough, he said, like, listen, man, like I said, I don't think that this is the right decision. And I felt it because, I felt I did it well, and that's all that mattered. And another thing that I found, a lot of people were trying to pick songs that were incredibly popular. And for me, obviously I picked some songs that were popular, but for Karma Police and like the whole, like, the viewers, there's a lot of people that didn't know Radiohead or know that song. So I wanted to pick songs that were known, but not so widely known that it's so easy to compare the singer to the original singer. So it's like you're doing like a popular Celine Dion song or a Whitney Houston song or whatever else is really popular. I felt like if you didn't really nail it and it wasn't up to the level of some of those big songs, it was easier to compare to see where you might have fell short. So sometimes I would pick tunes that some people might not have known widely, but I knew I did it well, and that's all that mattered. So by the end of it, the last song I did on the show was Hallelujah. And I thought I was going to get some pushback from the producer again, because it was so different from any other performance that I did. And at that point, they said, you know what you're doing, go ahead. They had no pushback, because the two times that they suggested me change the songs were my two best performances. So it just shows, man, you got to go with your gut sometimes. You got to go with what feels right.
I guess it is kind of risky doing some songs from the 90s when the show is in the 2000s, right? And you think of who the audience is that's watching and voting. And
Yeah.
some people that aren't that into music are sometimes voting for the song more than the person, right? Like, oh, I love that song, or I love the actual artist that does that song. So
Yeah.
it's tough. But if you know yourself and I could do a song that's more popular and more well known, but it wouldn't be my best performance, right? So there's a gamble there.
Song choice was everything. You have to know your voice. You have to know where your voice sits great, and that is half the battle, and I think there's a lot of people with great voices and they love other artists, but maybe those songs aren't specifically great for them, but they love the song so much that they do it, and it might not necessarily showcase their talents as well as they imagined. So just because it's not a super popular tune doesn't mean that it's not a great tune. And I think the song is still everything. So if the song is awesome and great, I think that's going to stand out.
So you go with your gut, you choose the songs that feel right, you make it to the finale, top two. You're there with JD Bigsby, who's amazing. He's the favorite to win. I don't think he was ever in the bottom. And you crushed it at the finale. And it to me, it seemed pretty apparent that you should win, like, based on performance. But then again, it is a popularity contest, so you never know what happens with the votes. But the difference between you and second place for the voting, it was such a landslide that they didn't even want to announce what the difference was, because it was pretty embarrassing for the runner up. So I think it's maybe the only time where they're just like, and here's the winner, like, instead of saying it was 52% to whatever. So what were the emotions on that night where an entire country tunes in and shows their support to you, voting you as the winner? What is that like? I mean, almost no one experiences that.
Oh man, I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it, because I haven't thought about it in a long time. Um, but it's incredible. It's a dream realized, in a moment. And more than anything, I think, I'm sure you've experienced this, when you reach a goal, a lot of times it's just a sense of relief, that it's like, oh, okay, we got through that. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Right. And then, the work really started after that, and then I really got to know what the music industry was all about after that. But it was such an incredible moment. And Hamilton, I mean, even to this day, and it's been 14 years, man, it's been a long time. Um, Hamilton's support for me has always been second to none. And when you're seeing in the finale and you're seeing 2,000 people at Hamilton Place with all these signs rooting for me just to watch the show, it blew my mind, because I was just this kid, like you said, that construction worker in a rock band, just going after his dream. And at some point in this show, my dream became my city's dream, and then that kind of bled over to areas in the country. So I just feel so humbled, and I feel so lucky that I was ever able to experience that. It was such a unique experience, and I'm just so thankful for it, because I made so many great friends like yourself, and 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 it opened up a lot of doors. But just like anything, there could be some people that try to ride on the coattails of an experience like that, and it can only take you so far. So I mean, it definitely launches you, it definitely helps, but from there you have to really work and prove to everybody, which sometimes, I think that almost got in the way when I was younger. Is like, I want to prove to you that, you voting in me and you believing in me wasn't a mistake. That I really got what it takes, and sometimes you can get in your own way with that mentality as well, because you're just trying to people please sometimes. But I learned a ton, and I honestly wouldn't change anything.
I remember once I got the boot and I'm watching the show, the top 22 down to the end. And then at one point I was cheering for you along the way. And then it's down to, okay, Ontario, like we still have Ontario on the map, right? So I was from Ottawa. I was the last man standing in Ottawa, but, you being from Hamilton, it was like, okay, now it's Ontario against, I think there was Carly Rae in BC, and then JD Bixby in Alberta. So then it was like all of Ontario was behind you, which was pretty cool.
I'll tell you one of the craziest stories. There's a newspaper article about this too, and about Carly Rae and I. So, I mean, obviously we all know what happened with Carly. Like, Call Me Maybe, she's had her own success and just blew up. And it's unbelievable to see how far she's come. It's just amazing. But I remember when I was on top 22, and actually it was, were you in the top 42 as well?
I think I was like 43rd. Like I was like the cut before that.
Okay, yeah. So you're right there. Okay, so around that time when it was going like 43rd or 44 or something to top 22, I was standing in line waiting to go in. We're at this point, we're just waiting to find out if you've made it to the live shows. And I have Carly Rae standing behind me, and she taps me on the shoulder, and she says, she goes, "Don't worry." She goes, "You're gonna go through." At this, she's never heard me. Maybe she heard me sing the first night, but besides that, she's never really heard me sing. She goes, "You're gonna make it through." I was like, okay. And never talked to this girl. And she goes, "You're either going to win or come in second place." This is what Carly Rae said to me. I was like, okay, like, where's that coming from? And she goes, "I had a dream about you last night." She goes, "I had a dream about you, and the confetti's falling, and I can see you on stage, but I can't see the other person. So I don't know if it's you that wins or the person that's there, right?" It's like, all right. So then this kind of became our own secret. We didn't tell anybody on the show. So every time I would hit the bottom, and she was on the bottom 3 times as well. Every time I did make the bottom, I'd look at her kind of like, "What about your dream?"
Yeah. Where's the dream now?
Yeah, right. And she said she had a dream like that once before, and it came true, and it felt real. She just knew it. And sure enough, we get to top 3, and she's in the top 3 with me. And I said, "Well, maybe it's you. Maybe you can't see the other person because it's you that wins." And then sure enough, on top 3, she was out, and I ended up winning the show. But she told me this when there was 44 people on the show, and she predicted my win. It was insane. And she ended up talking about it after she got off the show. It's somewhere out there. But yeah, she's got good intuition, that girl.
That's amazing. It's crazy. She finishes 3rd, I believe. She's the last female finalist on season 5. And, a few years later, she releases just an album in Canada, and it does pretty well. There was a couple of singles like Tug of War or something about a bucket. She had singles in Canada, kind of locally. And I went, and she was performing at a festival, and I went and said hi and talked to her, and like that, she was having quite a bit of success, but in Canada. And then there's the whole crazy, like Justin Bieber was back in Ontario at his grandparents. He was doing dishes, and this Call Me Maybe song comes on the radio, and it's only in Canada. Like it's just a Canadian thing where the song's doing pretty well. And Bieber's like, "What is this song?" And he brings it to his manager, Scooter Braun, and says, "This could be a global hit." So they look into it and realize there's only the rights in Canada. Like it's nowhere else. So they sign her and get the rights to everywhere but Canada. It goes on to it's one of the best selling singles of all time. Like it's diamond. It's sold like 13 million singles, and she's sold over 20 million albums since then. Like it's unbelievable. And it's because, you know, Bieber hears the song and then tweets about it.
It's
Like,
unbelievable. Yeah, it became like a trend. You
yeah,
know, like before TikTok had all those little dance videos and stuff, like they did it with Carly Rae's. And the thing was too is Call Me Maybe was out for like almost 8 or 9 months. Like the
yeah.
single was out in Canada, like you said, for a while, and it was doing all right. It was doing okay, and like you said, man, just a couple tweets and a couple videos on YouTube and stuff, and it just caught like wildfire. It was crazy to witness.
Yeah, it was the song of the summer for the summer that it came out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so crazy. So from your time with her on Idol, um, do you do you remember there being something special about her or about her talent? You know, could you feel that there was something there, some greatness? I remember the judges thinking, like, as a singer songwriter, she's got something there, like a Carly Simon, or like a
Yeah.
Carole King, or Joni Mitchell. Like, she had something unique, like not the Mariah Carey voice, but there's something going on there.
And that was her. That was her. Like I think the more singer songwriter thing is definitely close to her heart. Um, you know, she comes from like hippie parents, you know, just fun, like peace and loving, you know, like it kind of comes from that background. And I remember, you know, when we were in the mansion, they had you know, we were living good there for a few weeks, and they had a racquetball court in the basement of this place, but the acoustics were incredible, right? So we would grab guitars, and I'd play a guitar, and her and I would just kind of mess around with some song ideas. And she always had songwriting chops and was always a great writer, you know. So when she came up with her first stuff, that really, to me, that felt like her. Like, okay, like the very folky kind of Colby Collet kind of vibe to it, right? And now she's gone into, like, I think her last album was a little bit more like modern retro sort of vibe to it, very synthy and cool. So it's cool to see how she's evolved. But she definitely, like, she cuts her cloth from that singer songwriter world, like that Joni Mitchell uh vibe, you know. So I could see her too. I could see her as she gets older. I could see her kind of going back to that a little bit, and trying some of that stuff.
Now that
But
she has that FU money, you don't have to do the, you know,
yeah,
the pop
yeah,
hits anymore. You can kind of do what you want.
do what you want, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
a
we did
few.
a,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. No, no, we did a tour for about 6 weeks after the show. We did the top three tour with her, myself, and JD. And we just kind of, yeah, she was just very focused, head in the books, you know, and doing her thing. So she was pretty focused at that show to try to make something of herself. And the momentum never really stopped for her.
A few albums ago for her, she put out an album called Emotion. It's
Yeah.
Emotion or Emotions, and that album is unbelievable. Like, it actually had universal credit. Like, it didn't have the hits like Call Me Maybe,
Yeah.
or Good Time or whatever. It did well, but it didn't have that one smash hit. But the album as a whole was like
Right.
universally critically acclaimed, and it showed up on all the lists. Like, when the Grammy nominations were announced, it showed up on every list for the Grammy snubs, that it should have got a nomination
Yeah.
for, if, you know, if not album of the year, like at least whatever, pop album of the year, or one of the songs
I'll,
or something.
I'll,
It's
I'll,
amazing. I still listen to it all the time.
I'll tell you this. She knows what she wants, to the point when we were on the show that, and I'm not saying this as a knock, but to the point we were on the show, like, she would annoy the band, because she would be in there. We'd be waiting for our turn. She'd be in there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours with this band. But it was because she had all these ideas. You know, I want this reggae style, and if we do this and we do that and we do this and we do, so there was no shortness of ideas creatively for her. So, like I said before, she really knows what she wants, and she has no problem working through every idea possible until she gets what she wants. And I think that's a mark of a really good songwriter.
Yeah, that's a professional right there. So
Yeah.
the judges had great things to say about Carly, but they also had great things to say about you. And I got a little surprise here. So I reached out to Canadian Idol judge Zach Warner,
Oh
and
no.
this is what he had to say about what he loves about Brian Melo. So he put, I think Brian loved being the underdog on the show, kind of like being the people's champion. He had this humility that I think was him that was with him from his family, from his hometown, that allowed the audience to relax and really listen to how talented he was. He has built a life in music the same way. So that's from Zach Warner.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Zach. That's really nice.
Gets you
Yeah,
right in the feels.
yeah, it does, man. That's super cool that you did that. Um, awesome, awesome. No, that's really nice of them to say, and I he's not wrong. He's not wrong because I do like the pressure on me. I'm comfortable in that spot. You know, I think I'm probably more uncomfortable when people are expecting these, you know, like they have these high expectations. I'd rather you count me out. You know, I'm one of those people that you can compliment me and it'll motivate me to a certain extent. But you know, if you tell me there's something that I can't do, you know, I'm going to use that as fuel. You know, I've always sort of been that way. And you know, in Hamilton, man, it's like people used to make fun of our city all the time, and like they call us the armpit of Canada, and they always had all these jokes about Hamilton, and it's a smelly, stupid city, and it just there was a lot of ignorance, you know, and I think being from a city like this, you can't help but have a chip on your shoulder, you know, and so for me, it was just trying to battle through it, and I'm a perfectionist for good and for bad. And I think, you know, like no one's going to put a higher standard on me than myself, you know? So that really helped me along the way, but that's
That's a
super cool, man. That's really nice.
that's a good quality to have for sure, is to be able to, take the criticism and to turn that into fuel instead of kind of withering away. So being from Ottawa and living in Mississauga, so Hamilton was, I guess, about 45 minutes away from Mississauga, and
Yeah.
I had been there 3 times. So to this day, I've gone there 3 times. I had heard some of those things you said, like the misinformed stuff about Hamilton. So I went there twice for dates, and I went there once for a Tool concert, and
Oh,
and the city was awesome. It was amazing. So I think, yeah, it gets a bad rap for no
yeah.
reason.
You're always known about like it was always about the steel city, that blue collar city. And we obviously still have that here. But I mean, the artists that have come out of Hamilton. I mean, Tom Wilson, Jesse O'Brien,
The
Tommy
Arkells.
Swift, the Arkells, Monster Truck. Um, I mean, all these really great acts and bands. Um, you know, Daniel Lanois. I mean, all these great acts, these great musicians, all came from Hamilton. You know, and I don't know what that is. I think just that grittiness and it just being a musical town. Uh, yeah, Hamilton is was a bit of an underdog when it came musically, but I think that's changed as years have gone by because they've been able to have some successes coming out of here. But there's a ton of talent here. You know, you hang around long enough, you'll meet them, and they're great.
So you win Canadian Idol. Um, the first single comes out, All I Ever Wanted, and it goes platinum.
Hmm.
And then the album comes out and goes gold. I go out, I buy the album to show my support. Um, my 3 favorite songs were All I Ever Wanted, Back to Me, and Shine, which is 3 out of the 4 singles. So clearly your team knows how to choose the right songs as singles, which is pretty cool. You were able to write or co-write 5 of the songs on the album. I believe there's maybe 12 songs on the album. So the 5 songs co-written is more than any Canadian Idol ever on their first album. I mean, you know, the whole show, which is over several months, is promoting a new artist that's going to get signed to, I believe, Sony. And there's a lot of money and time invested. Like, they need hits, they need this to work. So they can't have this new artist writing songs. They want to bring in hit makers which is a guarantee based on a previous resume, right? That this producer has produced all these hits. So for you to actually be able to write or co-write almost half of your debut album is a big deal. Why was that important to you? And why do you think they actually gave permission? And it sounds like, why would you need permission as an adult? But it's whoever pays for the recording and owns it has a say.
Can you repeat that first part of that question again?
So the first part was, why was it important for you to have some writing say in the album? And why do you think they actually thought that that would be a good idea when normally they'd say, yeah, right, kid?
Yeah. I've been writing songs longer than I've been singing, so songwriting is just in my blood. Like I love it. And it felt very unnatural not to be a part of that process. Usually what they did years prior is they would start the writing process a few weeks earlier, kind of anticipating who the winner would be, and then do a bit more writing after, and then they toss out the album. The year that I won, it was the very first year that they didn't start the writing process until the winner was announced. So I remember it being a very humbling experience because I had two writing camps. So Sony had a writing camp for me, and EMI, when they were kicking around, EMI had a writing camp for me. So on both of those sessions, there was 20, 25 writers all the same day, all writing for me. So I'm there, there's 2 or 3 people in one room, there's a couple people in this room, there's a couple people on the next floor, and it's all happening for a 3-4 day period, and they're all trying to write these tunes. So I would get in, it was very weird to me because I'd get into a writing session with these people, and I got something flowing with a certain writer and love the tune. And then I'd get a phone call in that room and say, hey man, we just finished this tune. Do you mind if Brian comes in and sings on the demo? Because they understood that the likelihood of me picking a song that I wasn't singing on would probably be a lot less likely. So they really wanted me to sing on the demo so that they could hear my voice, right? So I would bounce around to room. So I'd start writing this tune. I'd bounce around. I'd have to go and sing this demo. And I'd go into another writing session. I'd build some momentum, and then they had to call me and do another demo for someone else. And that was basically my life for that week. So, but luckily, through some of the songs that I was able to sit in and write, some of them were chosen as some of the best out of the bunch, and was chosen, which I was thankful for. But it was even some of the songs that I co-wrote was sort of hard for me to feel super attached to a lot of them because of the way that I wrote that album, But after a show like that, man, like the single was out. So midnight, I win the show. All I ever wanted is on the radio the next day, right? So they need a second single before the album even comes out, right? So I won the show September 11th. We wrote, produced, marketed the whole album, and the album was out November 27th. So just over 2 months of doing all of that. So it was a lot. So it was important to me because it's just what I do. And I'm glad that they're able to hear my voice, and that I was able to get a few cuts on it. But it still was very foreign. It was still a very foreign process to me. So when I did my second album, The Truth, I wrote everything on that album. So I still wanted to get back to writing those songs because, like I said, that's the way I feel connected to the music. That's important to me. Not saying that I would never take any outside tunes, but for the most part, for me, it's all about the writing process. So it was humbling to know that they saw something in me, and they trusted in some of the songs that I wrote.
And speaking about the writing process, you're currently working on another album. How is that coming along? You were doing some writing earlier today.
Yeah. Might actually put out a Christmas single. First time I've ever done that, but it's a cool song we wrote today. But this is going to be the first time I put out solo music in a long time, because my last solo album was 2010. So it's like a decade, man. And I remember I was writing for my third album. And then that's when I met my bandmates from Apollo's Crown. And that was around 2012, 2013. And then we went down to Nashville for like 5 years. And I was just writing with the band. I wasn't writing for myself anymore for the next 5 years. I just kind of hit a fork in the road and I wanted to try something different. And that was a great experience. And we ended up recording an album that's never been released. We did it at Grand Victor, where like Dolly Parton did Jolene and Rolling Stones. You know, Chris Stapleton does his albums. Like, it was a pinch me moment to be able to record this album there. And I think at some point we'll release the album that the three of us did. But for 5 years, I was writing by myself. Writing with the band, you know, just focusing on them, not really writing for myself at all. And then I moved back home about 2 years ago, and I just wanted to get back. I kind of lost myself in the process in Nashville, and I just wanted to get back to what it was all about. It was just me grabbing a guitar in my room, strumming some chords, and just singing from the heart, and not giving a shit about the music industry, not what fits radio, not, you know, fill in the blank. It was about just writing for me in songs that I love. So myself and I have a co-writer by the name of Paul Stevens. I write everything with him. He's an incredible lyricist, and he's my partner in crime. And we started writing like madmen. So, I mean, doing this right now, like online, he's still in Nashville, I'm here. And we've written in the last 2 years, 100+ songs for myself and then for other artists. And then I finally got to a point, I didn't really put any pressure on myself. And I've gotten to a point where there's a lot of music that I've written for myself that I really love. And I wanted to get back into the studio and start recording. So this summer I went back in the studio and I recorded 3 songs. And, you know, it's a different world. I'm not really thinking about like full album stuff. I think at this point I have the material now and I want to continue to just put music out there consistently. So I have these 3 songs, and now I'll probably release the first single in the new year and continue that process for a little while. You know, when I'm back, I want to make sure that I'm back for a bit. So after those 3 are released, I'll probably be back in the studio, record another 3 or 4 and have that process continue. So it's been fun, and I kind of taken a lot of pressure off myself than how I was in the past. You know, I think in the past, after winning a show like Idol, the expectations on you were so high that like the second album, it's like, is this radio? Is this that? Is this, you know, and you're thinking like that, where as I've gotten older, that just really doesn't matter to me as much. It's about just songs I can stand by and show people that I've been growing as a songwriter and an artist, and hopefully they dig it. If not, you know, then great. But yeah, I'm happy to finally get it out there.
It's nice when you can do music just because you love it and not because, you know, because there's the expectations or you need the sales or whatever. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And I think like in the past that could have been a motivator, but I think the thing is too, the funny thing is when you think of it that way, the songs are better. You know, the songs are, because it really comes from an honest place. And I don't think the listeners are stupid. I think the listeners can really feel that, you know? So when you sort of not so much not care, but don't pay too much mind to all that other stuff around the songs, I think the songs and the quality of them are even that much better. And you trust your instincts a little bit more. And once you do that, I don't know how you can't have better music, you know?
I remember seeing Sting win an award. So I was watching whatever the Grammys or some music awards, and Sting wins. And he had like a mic drop moment where he just says, music is its own reward, and walked off the stage. Like the award didn't really mean anything, which is pretty cool. So you kind of have that vibe as you make the new album, that music is its own reward. And are you recording it at home in a studio? There's so many different with technology now. I mean, I have I can do radio quality recordings from here. What do you have going on? I have a background in audio engineering as well, which helps, but what do you have kind of going on for the recording? Are you going into a specific studio, or are you recording demos at home?
Yeah, one of my best friends. So another thing that I do is called Beyond the Melody Music Mentoring. So I mentor a lot of these young artists. I do these 10-week programs and help them both with music mentoring and personal development. But I rent a port up in Hamilton where I do my sessions. But right beside that, one of my best friends has a studio called Studio 410 in Hamilton, and they have this beautiful Neve console there, and it's a gorgeous studio. So I'm just in there co-producing with him. So went in there, brought in my buddy Andrew McTaggart to play guitar, brought in some really great musicians to play live off the floor. And the cool thing is, like you said, I mean, you know, there's a bass player that I know, for example, that like I can just send him the tracks. He has his whole setup at home. He can play bass, send me a bunch of revisions until I love it, and he doesn't have to leave the comfort of his home.
It's pandemic friendly recording.
It really is, you know. And yeah. I have a few friends that are drummers that they kind of just do that now, that they have like electric sets at home, and it sounds killer. They're just like, they have these inputs and these sounds, and they play the shit out of the drums, and they send it to you, and it feels radio ready, you know. So technology these days definitely help, and the budget can be a lot better than some of the budgets I've had in the past. But to me, there's always something about being in the studio, especially when you're doing the tracking process, you know, and just being in the room with the guys is important to me, you know, trying to create that musical fusion with everybody there. So I don't know if I'll ever kind of get away from that, you know. To me, there's something powerful about being in the same room with the guys.
You need that human element. You can usually feel when that's missing. So you mentioned Beyond the Melody, which is also the name of your podcast. That has to be a play on words with your last name, I would assume, or
yeah. It kind of worked out that way. When it happened by accident, because I came up with the name Beyond the Melody. I wasn't thinking about Melo, but then once I heard it, I was like, oh, that's kind of a happy accident. That sort of worked out well, you know. So
where did the inspiration come from for a podcast?
Well, for me, and first, before I go on, I want to thank you, because I started my podcast a few months ago, and you were the first to reach out and let me know that you've been doing the podcasting, if there's any help, and you helped me kind of get going with actually even figuring out how to put a freaking podcast out there. So thank you for that. But for me, you know, like I said, I started this Beyond the Melody music mentoring. So it started with the mentoring program, and I was trying to figure out ways on how I could market myself and how I could create content, you know, but something that felt natural to me, because I'm not really that guy that's, you know, going to do all these videos and editing and stuff. It really doesn't interest me. But I thought podcasting's cool, because I've always been a really curious person. Like, if you were to ask my siblings, I was like the why kid. So when I was a kid, it'd be like, well, hey, you know, why is the sky blue? Well, because it's blah, blah. Well, why? And they'll give me an answer. Well, why this and why that? And it probably annoyed the shit out of my brothers and sisters after a while. But I was that curious kid. So I've always been curious about people and their stories. But like I said, originally the motivation was just to find and create new content for my mentoring program and talk to creatives. You know, I just wanted to talk to creatives from all walks of life that have been able to create a dream for themselves, or you know, realize some amazing things in their life, and share their story. And it has been such a phenomenal experience for me, because I don't know about you, but just connecting with people again, like, I just love it. I just love like meeting new people, learning about their story, you know, getting it out there, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's sort of kind of evolved into its own thing. But yeah, so I've been able to talk to a lot of really cool people, a lot of musicians, some business people, some comics, you know. So it's not something that I think I'm going to stop doing. I just love it. So yeah, that's basically what it was. It's just kind of finding a way to create new content and diving into it. And it's been a blast.
Yeah, I find the podcasting's been a blessing during the pandemic. You know, I'm super social. I'm normally running a bunch of big events, and you know, being quarantined for almost 2 years has not been easy on the mental health. And you know, a lot of people, you know, even though everyone's been isolating, a lot of people, it's like, you know, her and her husband, or you know, with the kids, or with what, so they're quarantined, but they're still not alone. And then there's some people, like, I've been living alone, so it's been been pretty tough. So I find that the interviews, doing them, you know, once a week or once every 2 weeks, that it really helps to feel connected to a human being, because you kind of lose that, you know.
Yeah. Was that your motivation to start the pod?
I did start it during, you know, in the first few months of the pandemic. I'm a huge fan of podcasts. Like you mentioned, Joe Rogan and
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson and Tim Ferriss, and there's so many good podcasts, and they're mostly the inspirational stuff.
Yeah.
I've just always been a big fan. And then I had a business partner, Alicia Grant, that started a podcast, and it sounded great, and she was doing well with it and doing a good job. And I just thought, okay, well, I'll talk to her. And she's like, it's so simple. Like you can do it for free and use this site. So I reached out to you basically because I had recently reached out to her, and she gave me all the goods as the person that had started before me. So when I saw you were thinking of starting one, I thought, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just pay that forward for what she did to me. But yeah, it's been awesome. So I checked out your podcast, and your voice sounds amazing. Like we had technical difficulties, so we had to cut out your mic.
Yeah.
So your voice still sounds great, but when you have that good mic up
I was
close,
ready to go. I was ready to go.
yes, you were ready. It was not on you. It's the technology gods have spoken today
Yeah.
and not in our favor. But yeah, your voice with the mic up close sounds amazing. Your interviewing skills are awesome. So I wanted to ask you, did you know before starting the podcast that you would do a good job being the one that's doing the interviewing? And now that now that you do know that you do a good job, do you think it's because of you being on the other end and having done so many interviews that you kind of get the feel for what the interview is like and how it should flow? Because you've probably had some people that were terrible doing interviews, and you've probably had some people that were great doing interviews with you, and maybe by osmosis you kind of learned that skill.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I really don't know. I don't know. I know people around me were saying that I was good at conversation and talking to people and stuff, but I never really knew because like when you're talking to people, you don't really record yourself. So like I never really knew how I sounded when it came to that. Obviously, like you said, you do the interviews, but um, for me, like I said, I think it's just being interested in people, like being genuinely curious and interested in people, and listening and really paying attention. But again, for me, it was a learning curve. I was nervous, man. I was definitely nervous when I started, and wanting to do a good job, and wanting my guests to walk away feeling like, and I'm sure you're the same way, wanting them to walk away and feel like, oh wow, man, he did his research and he was attentive and he asked cool questions and it was a good conversation. I did a lot of interviews that I hated because there was no effort. It was so predictable. So I knew I didn't want to be that. The thing that I love about podcasts are the conversations, and when there's a rhythm in the conversation, the listener can feel like they're part of the conversation. So I just wanted to sit back and be as genuine and as real as possible with these people. And to me, I'm always, like, again, like I said, like a bit of a perfectionist. Like I listen to my podcast, and I always, my whole mentality is, how can I get 2% better after every episode? Okay, I'm doing too many or I could have worded that question a bit better, or I could have a little less banter in between, or those little things
I'm
that,
talking too fast,
or
or
I'm talking to, yeah,
I have little, you touch your face, or yeah.
it's something, right? Yeah. So for me, it was it's always trying to find a way to just get that 2% better. So I don't think that mentality is ever going to go away. And then it's listening to the ones that do a really great job. When you, with the guys like Rogan, guys like Tim Ferriss, guys that are very articulate and very smooth and very confident in their speech, and trying to figure out how I can just be a little bit better each time, and make sure that the people that are listening want to come back and listen that much more. And you know how it comes down to the guests too, like having really great guests. And I've been lucky enough that I haven't had any duds yet. Everybody's been great, so I've been very, very lucky in that respect. So just trying to talk to interesting people and learn and become a better listener. Like I said, going back to your question, I think it's having a genuine curiosity, and you really got to care. You really have to listen. It can't be bullshit, and I think those are the best.
I think we're both probably more nervous doing the podcast interviews than performing live,
For sure. Oh,
Yeah.
100%. That stuff becomes like second nature now. I do gigs, and I've done so many now that that's where I feel at home as far as singing. But as far as me talking and trying not to make an ass out of myself in the process,
Yeah.
uh,
It's funny. You start the interview and you're on question one and you realize there's like an hour and a half to go. And that there's so much time and room for error there, So it's
yeah,
always when you get to the end and it went well, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe like we pulled that
yeah.
off again.
And you can feel it, right? I don't know if you feel that or not, but like there's some podcasts when I'm done, I'm like, okay, that was great. That they were a great guest. They like good conversation, gave really good answers, cool stories, whatever, like, or even yourself. It's like it just felt natural. It felt like a really good rhythm. So sometimes, yeah, you just feel it in the conversation. And for me, it's like once it's always the beginning of the pod for me when I'm starting. So it's about like the intro combos and getting into that rapport and getting into that rhythm. But usually after about 10 minutes of talking, everyone forgets that they're recording and just kind of rolls with it. And once I hit that pocket, I don't really think about it too much after that.
Some great advice I got for nervousness, whether it's going on stage or interviewing, is if you're nervous, it's because you're thinking too much about yourself. So if you can think about, if you're performing, if you can think about not like, oh, I have to sound perfect, I have to look great, I'm a star. If you can think, man, I can't wait to, all these hardworking people that spent their money to come out. I can't wait to deliver a good time for them to have a great night and sing along with me and have memorable moments. And you take it off of you, because if it's about them and they're having fun, you don't have to be perfect for them to have fun, and you don't have to be perfect for it to be memorable for them. And same thing with the podcast. If you're nervous, you just start to think, okay, well, it's not about me. Like, this platform I created so I can have remarkable people share their story and for them to be heard, and for me to extract their wisdom and their knowledge and their skills and pass that on to whoever is listening to this. So it's like a transfer of those qualities. And then suddenly it's not about you. And you're like, okay, if I mess up or if I don't sound great or I don't look great, I didn't do this for those reasons. And I found that that's
Exactly.
helpful.
That's incredible advice. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Cool. We both agree. Now, so your podcast, man, you've had some amazing guests. Even though you just started a few months ago, your lineup is pretty crazy. So you had Susie McNeil, you've had Rick I think it's Campanelli,
Yeah.
Tommy Swick, an amazing singer-songwriter. I think he's either at least been nominated, if not won a bunch of Junos.
He won a Juno, yeah.
Yeah, and hockey legend Doug Gilmour. I mean, these are amazing guests. Who out of all your guests so far were you most nervous speaking of? I feel like Doug Gilmour would be.
Doug. It was Doug.
Yeah.
You know how it is, right? Like musicians, we can talk to each other, we relate, but something about, like, they say like musicians want to be athletes and athletes want to be musicians, that kind of thing. Doug Gilmour, man, he was my freaking hero. I'm a Leaf fan. So to be able to sit down, I mean, I was sitting at his house having Arnold Palmer's, and
Yeah.
and kicking back and talking with him, and to be able to ask him about the high stick from Wayne Gretzky, to be able to ask about him, going into the Hall of Fame or winning the Stanley Cup with the Flames, and hearing it from the horse's mouth. And this was one of my first childhood heroes. And for him to be so gracious, so kind, so nice, it was awesome. That hands down, I was a little, I was trying not to fanboy. Everybody else was.
You're probably fanboyed a little, but I'm sure he appreciates it.
Oh yeah, 100%. But he couldn't have been nothing it couldn't have been nicer than he was. And here's a cool story about that. So I go to his place, and he takes me downstairs right after the interview's done. He takes me downstairs to show me some of his like merchandise. And we go into his closet, and he takes out his Calgary Flames jersey that he wore when he won the Stanley Cup, and he lets me hold it. I'm like, what the hell? Goes in and gives me the Leaf, doesn't give it to me, but lets me hold the Leaf jersey that he wore for the very last game with the Leafs. I'm like, this is freaking crazy.
That's history.
It's history, right? But then he has this, I see this guitar this guitar box or case, and it's in like Toronto Maple Leaf blue. And he goes, yeah, he goes, this guy made me this cigar box guitar for a fundraiser, and I bought it at the auction. And he goes, and I've had it here for 3 years. He goes, Brian, he goes, I just want to give it to somebody that knows how to play. And I talked to you about my friend Andrew McTaggart. Andrew's incredible. He's been my guitar player for a while. Plays with Steven Tyler. Plays with Tim Hicks. He's an incredible musician, and he's the sweetest guy in the world that I knew. Also a Leaf fan. So I was like, I have the guy for you, because basically it's all about slide guitar and those cigar box. So it's like a Cohiba cigar box body. They had the Leaf emblem in the back. It was signed by Doug Gilmour. When you open it up, you have a Doug Gilmour signed rookie card in this cigar box. And he goes, I have the guy for you. He goes, oh, really? Here, take it. Gives me the cigar box guitar. And it was crazy. I left with Doug's guitar, and I ended up giving it to Andrew at our gig 2 weeks ago, and he just lost his mind. So Doug just had me promise to send him a video of us playing it, and we're gonna learn the Hockey Night in Canada song on it, and play a video and send it to Doug. But yeah, like I said, he couldn't have been cooler.
I think with Andrew, you have a get out of jail free card for life, right?
Yeah. Well, today, so I was writing with him today, and he took out that the rookie card. He gave it to me. He goes, man, even if I play with it live, I don't want the rookie card to be in there. So he gave me the rookie card, and he kept the cigar box guitar. So it was a good like lunchroom deal,
That's awesome. They growing up in the music industry, they say, you have to be careful meeting your idols, because a lot of times it'll break your heart that you have an image of who they are and they're not like that. I think of the actor Russell Crowe. He has he's not known as being the nicest guy. And I remember he had a quote that hit home. He said, I owe you my best performance. I don't owe you a good attitude. And I thought that was pretty crazy, because it's like he always wanted to be a great actor, and he is. And then there's all this celebrity and fame that comes with it that he didn't ask for. Like, that's not the dream. So it's like, even though you hope everyone is nice to everyone, it's like I can respect that quote, right? Where it's like, I asked for this, I didn't ask for that, and now I have to deal with this. So that's an example of, you have to be careful meeting your idols, because it might just break your heart. So it's pretty awesome that you get to meet an idol in Doug Gilmour, and he ends up being super sweet,
Yeah, exactly. I've been pretty lucky that way. Been able to meet some cool people, and for the most part, everybody's been fantastic. But yeah, going back to Russell Crowe, it's kind of like that old saying where they say like, fame, money, success just is kind of like a microscope of it just makes you more of who you are. Yeah. So if you become a millionaire and you're a jerk, then you have more to be a jerk with.
You'll be a bigger jerk.
Yeah, you'll just be a bigger jerk. But if you're compassionate and loving, you have more to be compassionate with, right? I think that goes with fame, fortune, all those things. So it doesn't necessarily change you sometimes. It just sort of kind of magnifies who you already are.
So you've already had a bunch of amazing guests. Who would your top 3 dream guests be? If you had a magic wand, you could tap 3 people on the shoulder, boom, they end up at your studio. Who would it be? So I've written out a list of some pretty cool people. Like for me, Eminem. Like I'm a huge Eminem fan, and I feel like there's the genius brain in there that I could pick. And I feel like because of his character and his persona that, it would be tricky to kind of wade through all of that to get to the goods, but I feel like that would be incredible. And for me, Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson
Yeah,
and
those are
those
great.
guys.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you a four. Give you a
Ooh,
four.
okay. More than I
Uh,
asked for. I like it.
yeah. Tony Robbins,
Nice.
because Tony had a huge impact on my life. When I read Unleash the Power Within, that really did change me. And I did get to meet him once very quickly for a quick photo. It was kind of maybe similar to the Brian Tracy event. But to actually sit down and talk to that guy and just take his energy and hopefully more of that kind of rubs off on you. Um, so Tony would be one of them. Rogan, I'm with you. I mean,
Nice.
he's
We'll
the
double
God.
team. We'll
Well,
get him in
yeah,
a room.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Rogan would just be great because the guy's just this interesting, cool guy. Um, Paul McCartney,
Nice.
I would love to sit down with a Beatle.
Yeah.
You know,
Only a part of the greatest songwriting duo of all time, right?
of all time, right? So sitting down with McCartney, like I don't know if you saw it, but you should. I think it's on Disney Plus. Uh, McCartney 3-2-1, and he talks with Rick Rubin.
Oh, I love Rick
And
Rubin.
they go through all the Beatles tracks and listen to all his lead bass parts and stuff. You'll love it, man. You'll love it. So check that out. So him, and then a guy that I've been listening to his pod and I just find him so fascinating and wise is Mike Tyson. I would love to sit down with Mike Tyson and just chat with him because he's had such an unreal journey in career, but he's for him to come out the other side way more wise and just with all this depth and wisdom, it's really profound. So I'd love to talk to him too.
Crazy the career resurrection that he's had since he was kind of in no man's land, and then he had the cameo in Hangover, and
And he was in rough shape there, man. Like he
yeah.
was, yeah,
So he loses a ton of weight, he starts doing good, like he's all about charity, and
yes,
it's crazy the turnaround. But you think about it, like imagine being bred essentially from birth to be like a murderer,
yeah.
in the boxing ring, and the only person that ever believed in him was his trainer who died when he was young, and it's like he doesn't have that mentorship or the guidance anymore, and knowing you could literally like kill anybody with your bare hands, and then suddenly being worth $200 million, like how can you not be messed up? Like they talk about Justin Bieber, where it's like he went through that period where he was doing some dumb stuff. And it's like, well, imagine you're 14, and from 14 until now, where I don't know, he's 27 or something, he's worth $250 million. He doesn't know what a normal childhood is, or
Yeah.
how many mistakes have we made? It just hasn't been in the spotlight.
That's what I mean. Think about it, man. If the camera was on us like him, how many times, we would be in the tabloids as well doing stupid shit. Like that that's inevitable. So it's so easy to judge these days. Like it's I find it hilarious sometimes how people uh think they have these certain celebrities figured out just by a post or by something that they've done, and it's just not that cut and dry. It's not that simple. These people have very complex lives, and yes, they're very privileged and they have a lot of money, a lot of fame, but there's a lot that comes with that. And to act like we know what they're going through, we have no clue, no clue. So it's don't don't judge, man. You just don't know what's going on in that person's life.
Yeah, you think you would do different in their scenario, but until you're in that
Yeah.
scenario, you have no idea. Just a couple more questions before we wrap up. So you did probably my greatest fear, which is sing the national anthem at a Blue Jays game.
Yeah.
To me,
I'm doing it Sunday.
yeah. So you've done it a couple times, and you're doing it
Yeah.
again, or this is the second time?
This will be my third time, and it's the very last game of the season, so I'm
Wow.
doing it this Sunday, and yeah.
So here's why this is like my greatest fear is to be out there singing a cappella, and it's the national anthem, which has a special place in everyone's heart. And some of the greatest singers of all time have butchered this. You think of like Christina Aguilera, and there's famous video of her butchering it. I think
Oh, Fergie.
Fergie, I think Steven Tyler's messed it up. I think
The
God,
beautiful voice of Roseanne Barr.
Jamie Foxx, like all these people, it's like everyone knows the anthem, but then and some of these are the multi-million sellers, greatest singers of all time, and they butcher it because just in the moment there's nowhere to hide behind music. There's you forget a word, and it's like the most offensive thing you can do to anyone in that country, because they think, well, you don't even know the words, or you must hate Canada, or there's this weird stigma to it. And it's like, my nightmare is like in the middle of the night, I'm in a dream where I'm singing the national anthem that's like a nightmare I want to get out of. So
Yeah.
what is the experience like? You keep doing it, obviously you're not messing it up, and you look forward to it, and it's awesome, and it's a great experience and a great opportunity. What is it like for you? And you can ignore the whole nightmare side for me.
Yeah, I know.
Let me live vicariously through you, because I'm never going to sing the anthem at a sporting event.
Yeah. Well, shit, man, it's terrifying. It's as exciting as it is. I get more nerves doing that than I do any other performance. So don't kid yourself, man. I think the last time, like, my fiance and my brother was there, they caught me on the jumbotron, and I think my hand was doing this, just kind of shaking. I'm like, fuck, hold it together, dude, hold it together. So it's exhilarating, it's terrifying, and in a place like Rogers Center, it's so big. So when you're standing in the field and you're about to sing, like, you really feel like you're getting swallowed up by this like huge stadium. So it can be intimidating. But for me, again, it's like you said in the beginning of the pod, it's like nerves can work for you or they can work against you. And there's a very, very fine line between like excitement and nerves, So for me, it's just really trying to stay focused, like you said, not mess anything up, and be in the moment. But I've done it a couple times, and I think I was even more nervous the second time. So hopefully that's not the case this Sunday.
Hopefully it's not exponential in that direction.
Yeah. So just you try to stay focused, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity that the Blue Jays have given me, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, but it's one of those moments, man. You got to face your fears. Like I said, I've done it before, and it's always, and there's this echo too, which is always crazy. So like there's this latency, so you hear your voice, but the place is so big that it's like
back through the speakers too.
You got this monitor in front of you. You just got to focus on that monitor, because if you're not focusing on that, it's just sort of bouncing around the stadium, right? So, but yeah, it's taking a deep breath, reminding yourself you've done this before. Don't get in your head too much, which is easier said than done sometimes. But and then enjoy the ride, and then they give you good tickets to the game, and sit back, and hopefully the Jays can make the final wild card. Did they win yesterday? I don't know.
I'll be honest, I'm a hockey and a UFC fan. That's a part of the Joe Rogan why I want to sit down with him. Too. Yeah.
I'm NFL, UFC is big for me too.
That's awesome. So
hockey as well, but I fell off a little bit following the Leafs as much as I did in the past. But I think now they got a good squad. I've been watching them a little bit more, but yeah, it's been football and UFC are big for me too.
Awesome. We've surprisingly done well over an hour and a half. So it's been
wow.
it's been smooth. It's been fun. And one final question for you. Now, this isn't an easy one. You're going to have to dig deep here. So I want you to imagine yourself back on stage as the tambourine man as a kid, right? You got on stage, you got that moment of what it feels like to be a professional musician. Imagine, so you were what, 8 years old, 6?
Something around there, yeah.
So let's say you're 6 years old, you have your tambourine man, you get the cheers, you go backstage, and there's present day Brian Melo who can give advice to 6-year-old Brian Melo. What advice would you give to that young kid that just got a taste of what the future could have in store? Now that you have all these years of experience and mentorship and training and lessons and all that, what advice do you give your younger self?
It's a great question. Honestly, man, like the advice is going to be pretty simple. Talking to the younger me, and it's going to be it's going to sound so cliche, but it's true. Believe in yourself, like, and follow your heart, and understand that you can do it. I think for me, when I was like I said, I was a shy kid, like my parents didn't know I could sing until I was 16, 17 years old, because part of me didn't think I was any good. It was just something that I loved to do. So telling that kid to believe yourself and that you can do it is huge, and I think, and I would say that to anybody listening, because if you do that and you're always finding ways, and again, learn from your mistakes, I'd say that as well, because as long as you're learning from your mistakes and you're believing in yourself, sooner or later things are going to fall into place, and sooner or later that momentum is going to start to build, and you got to take chances. You have to take chances. And I think maybe I would have done it, it worked out perfectly, but maybe I would have done it even that much more sooner, or I would have done more shows younger and getting myself out there, because I wasn't in my way so much, and I'm thankful that I had those people around me, have it be my best friend, Kevin Craig, who's my best friend to this day, that I had no problem being confident and was able to see something in me that I didn't see myself. My teachers, my brothers, my parents, like, I've, like they say, it takes a village to raise a kid. And I've been very lucky to have all these people believe in me before I had a chance to believe in myself. So I would say that. I would just say, believe in yourself, learn from your mistakes, and just, trust in your gut.
Now, where can our listeners find you online? If they want to reach out and say, hey, Brian, I love the episode, or hey, Brian, when's the album coming out, or any of that, where can they find you? Social media?
Social media. Yeah. I think the Instagram's where I spend most of my time on social. So I'd say you can follow Brian Melo Music, and just reach out. If you send me a DM, I'll try
slide into his DMs. You have permission.
Slide into my DMs and reach out. That's the best way to get in touch with me. And then if anyone that is in the area that's looking for any mentorship in music and stuff, they can go to beyondthemelody.ca, and they can contact me and email me there. And those are probably the best ways.
Perfect. All right, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. I know you're in the middle of, the album writing and recording process. So I really appreciate it. I've had a ton of fun doing this. I always love talking to musicians because it feels like home, and I really appreciate it.
Well, bro, thank you so much for reaching out. Once again, thank you for helping me along the way with the podcast and get things going. So nice to catch up with you, and let's get together the next time you're in the area, man.
Let's do it. Maybe October 12th. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys. My goal is to grow this podcast organically, where you're giving me feedback on topics you'd like me to cover and guests you'd like me to interview. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel, and on Twitter at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.